Today, my guest on the show is Rob O'Neill. He is a Fox analyst, but more famously known as the member of SEAL Team 6 who went in on Operation Neptune Spear and was labeled as the man who shot and killed Osama Bin Laden. Today, Rob and I have a fun little discussion talking about tough phases in life, things like going through BUDS training and becoming a Navy SEAL, and the kind of lessons or wisdom that we gain from going through these tough phases in life.
Quite frankly, it's kind of unusual.
It's quite Franklin.
Got it. Quite Franklin.
How you doing, brother?
Thanks for your flexibility. We have some home issues. We just got home from a 2-week trip and everything was breaking and it needed to be addressed instantly.
You know what? That's okay. I was out of town for a couple of days and I came home. My entire Wi-Fi system reset. So I have to get on the phone with my provider. You know how that always takes 5 minutes or 5 hours, whatever. But I had I was gone for 4 days. And it was as if my Wi-Fi never existed. So I had to reset the whole system. So I feel your pain. You were dealing with plumbing issues or something, right?
I got plumbing issues. Yeah, we this house is so old that no one's used the plumbing, and some roots had grown through the pipes. Needless to say, my neighbors noticed it, and they're like, "We got it. You can't be pumping this into my yard." It's like, all right, yeah, all right, I got it. Sorry.
What year was your house built?
I want to say it was about 1900. It's on a mountain on a hillside in New York, and it's just the road hasn't been updated, and there's no roundabout. You can drive down there and you're just stuck, and then the neighbor gets all pissed when you're
in their grass.
Going into his. Yeah, it's. I've had more drivers get yelled at by my neighbor, and I was like, "I'm sorry, man. I told them to back up."
Yeah, no, I live in an old farmhouse too, and mine was built in the around 1950, and it's on stacked cinder block. It was at a time when they just really didn't do great construction, or at least not on this house. So yeah, I'm actually getting ready to build. So there's always things falling apart in this house, man.
Every time you buy a house, it's soon as everything starts breaking as soon as you sign the contract. And ours was someone trying to flip it. So the contractor she had before must not have gotten paid very well. I'm convinced they were sabotaging it. So we're fixing everything from the HVAC to the plumbing to the 41 steps that go to the front door.
Are you a home fix it guy? Can you fix things?
I can do some certain things, a little bit of construction, but that's one of if people ask me about my regrets in life is not learning to be a carpenter or a mechanic.
Yeah.
Because it's just cool stuff that people are losing. The closest I am now is I have the number to a great plumber, a great carpenter, and mechanics.
It just costs you money. But that's the thing, Rob. I find even with myself, you've spent an entire lifetime honing in on a certain set of skills, right? And now you're retired from that job, which as I'm retired from fighting. So I don't get to use this skill set the way that I used this skill set when I was fighting. Now, granted, I'm doing other things, but at the time that I spent spending all this time learning how to fight, my brother learned how to do HVAC systems. He learned how to do drywall.
Yeah.
He learned how to do duct work. They know. So every time something breaks down, I can do some basic work, but when it gets too complex, I'm like, "Hey bro, can you come over and help me?" I'm that guy.
You didn't waste anything. You know how many guys would give up so much just to be able to knock someone out? Most guys don't know how to do that. That's
yeah,
cool.
But it's not for example, it's not you're getting phone calls "Hey, Rob, listen, my neighbor's pissing me off. Can you just can you grab your sniper rifle? Just one round. That's all I need, man."
All we need is one round.
Yeah.
Maybe a second one just for insurance. But yeah, it's pretty funny.
So I don't ever get to use my skill set. So I would have been better off maybe learning how to play the guitar or something like that, because at least sitting at a campfire or something, I could pull that thing out and be the cool guy. Getting up and punching somebody in the face doesn't really impress people at this age.
No, that scares people. And I almost want to be the guy who can almost play the guitar. Just keeps almost getting it.
You like that guy? Are you that guy at the party?
Yeah. I don't have any skills as far as the music. That's my brother's line of work. I was convinced growing up that I was going to be a basketball player, so I got really good at free throws, and I got really good at free throws and how to tell jokes. So I can speak in public, and I like to get up in front of people, but I missed out on all the stuff that matters. What do free throws matter to me now, other than knowing that repetition and mastering the basics are how you get good at something? Other than that, it's I wish I would have learned about it. I'm convinced to this day that a carburetor is magic. I don't know how it works. It just does.
If you think that's magic, then you should study fuel injection. It's even more modern magic.
I was always the guy that if the car broke down, I expected to lift the hood and see a huge on-off switch to off. I'm like, oh, that's easy. On.
You know what, Rob? I actually I read your book, The Operator, and it was pretty interesting reading about like you growing up in Butte, Montana, because you told a bunch of stories where I was like, man, it almost felt like I was reading a book about my life, like in some aspects, like as your young age, because you were talking about how you were never, like, you weren't a great athlete. You didn't have, like, you know, and I was the same way. Like, I grew up playing football. That was my passion. I was the Rudy of my high school football team. I never started. And I, like, it didn't dawn on me that I wasn't going to get a college scholarship until the day I graduated, or not till the day I graduated, but till the day that I was turning in my equipment at the end of my senior year. And I was kind of scratching my head like, well, what do I do now? Because I wasn't the fastest guy on the team. I wasn't the most explosive guy on the team. Like, and you kind of described yourself in your book that way. And I was like, man, I could really relate to you on this level of things athletically anyway.
I was never, like I said, free throws were good, but like I didn't realize just growing up there that my conditioning was kind of off. And that's just because I didn't take enough time to do that. I didn't know about nutrition. In Butte, Montana, you pretty much put gravy on everything. You don't know any better.
Oh yeah.
I learned early on about mindset, because with basketball, I was just shooting. But once we got into the real game, my conditioning was off. With Navy SEALs, I didn't know how to swim, so I got nothing to lose. But I realized having a positive attitude over anything is going to get you a lot further. And I did learn the hard way that if your body goes and your mind stays, you're going to be just fine. But if your mind goes, that's it. Your body's not going to pull you through it. You need your mind.
Linking this back to the way you described yourself as an athlete, that you talked about how the Navy has hired psychologists and whatnot to assess who could possibly graduate from buds, and who, like, they try to figure out a formula of who's the most likely prospect, like the state champion swimmer or the whatever. And you said in the book that they really haven't been able to determine who would succeed and who wouldn't. And I would assume, like, you would, if the psychologist, or if there was like a scouting agent like there is in the NFL for Navy SEALs, he probably would have looked at you and been like, you're not going to make the grade. Much like with me, if there was a scouting agent for champions, they would have said like, you're probably not going to make the grade. But against the odds, that happened. Like, talk about that. Talk about like the psychology of this. And
I just knew I wasn't going to quit because I had so many people tell me I couldn't make it. So I don't have a choice now. I can't. I'm gonna fail probably because I'll fail a swim. These are 2 mile ocean swims that are timed at least once a week, and the time keeps getting less and less. There's got to be a time I fail, but I'm not quitting. And then there's other guys that did play water polo in college that knew they could swim, but they let the fear get to them. And I learned that it's okay. Fear is actually good.
Oh, yeah.
Fear is fine, because that's like when you hear stuff in your house at night when you're by yourself. That's just fear working for you. But the problem is when you panic. There's a very fine line. If you panic, and I'm assuming in the octagon, you panic at something, you're going to have a problem. Fear is fine because you can pinpoint it. But then I saw people quit out of panic because they got so afraid, which I don't know how much sense that makes. But it's like, dude, calm down. No one's going to kill us here. This is training. This is a controlled training environment. Let's have fun with it. And it's going to suck, but it's going to suck together. And then once you start to, misery loves company. When you're embracing the suck with your friends, it's a camaraderie building thing. And then I had an instructor tell me that the first day, this course is not impossible. People graduate. Look at me. I graduated. So I'll never ask you to do anything impossible. It's just going to be really, really hard for a long, long time. But if you don't let the panic take over, fear's your best friend. I mean, fear helps when you're swimming in the Pacific Ocean at night, knowing there's great white somewhere out here. Make me swim faster.
Yeah, I was afraid before every fight. Like, it's just one of those things, and it's about controlling that. I always tell people, like, I've said something kind of similar. I'll say it maybe differently, but it's kind of getting to the same point. Like, I don't really believe in fear in a sense, in certain situations, I should say. And the example I'll give is I was hiking with this team. We were traveling down in the Philippines, and we were at these falls, and we were jumping off these waterfalls, and the waterfalls successively got higher and higher. And I came to this waterfall that was, I think it was 13 meters, and I wanted to do a running gainer off the waterfall. And as I kind of looked at it, I was like, it's been a while since I've done a gainer. There's a good chance that I'm going to over rotate this thing and not land properly. And I stood there and I contemplated, like, do I want to try this or not? There was no point at time where I was afraid, but rather I was like calculating the probability of my success.
That's better. And that's controlling your fear. I think if you panic and just went, I'm going for it, you end up with a punctured lungs because you land on your back.
Yeah. But I know so many people that, for example, I mean, you talked a lot about jumping or whatever. Like I'm skydive certified, and people that are in this plane and they're on the way up in the plane, and that anticipation, that 15 to 20 minute ride till you get to altitude, they're just like pissing themselves. And then once they jump out, they're like, wow, this actually is not what I expected.
That's I tell people now. I had a bunch of skydives, obviously, as a Navy SEAL, and I was a tandem master, jumping tandems and stuff. And I would tell them the hardest part of skydiving is from that bench to that door. The rest of it's gravy. It's easy. And even I had a recent. I went diving a lot of months with apex predators in the ocean. So I'm doing open water dives with no cage with tiger sharks, big tiger sharks and great hammerheads and bull sharks. And the scariest part is while you're on the boat. Once you get in there and you're among it, it's all right. And things, just be smart about it. Don't get there. Like sharks, for example, there's certain things you don't do with a shark because it'll make them nervous.
Yeah.
Just chill out.
Yeah.
I mean, take a step back, take a deep breath. You control chaos by breathing. And I'm assuming the same with fighting. You gotta keep it breathing.
I'm sure you hunt and you grew up in Butte, Montana. So you're walking through the woods and people get very afraid of a snake. It's like, look, that snake can only strike half the length of its body, right? So as long as you stay out of that range, then you're fine. Like that's all it can do. And so it's getting inside that range is where, okay, maybe I'm going to get afraid, but yeah, I can take the extra steps necessary to keep myself from being stupid. And I'm the same way. Yeah. I'll get in the water. Like I'm scuba certified, so I'll dive in the water. I have this, I wouldn't call it fear of the ocean, but great respect. So like if you put me in the middle of, if we were in the ocean where I couldn't see land and you were like, jump out, I'd be like, I don't know what's in there, but put scuba gear on me. The moment I submerge, I'm okay.
We did a daylight swim in the middle of the Atlantic. I was crossing the Atlantic on the USS Austin, which is since mothballed. That's how old I am. But we were halfway between, and the water's 5,000 feet deep, middle of the daytime, and we're like, I don't know if anything lives out here, but I don't want to run into it. I don't know what's going on a mile beneath me. It's all that stuff too. But again, that's with the scuba diving. It's almost like, because fish don't make noise. Mammals do generally. And when you're exhaling with the scuba, that actually relaxes them because it's something new. It's the scariest stuff I've done diving was on closed circuit, the rebreathers. Because now you're not making any noise, and these big fish, not necessarily sharks, but like groupers or something, just think you're a big clumsy fish, and they want to come see you. So that's when, when you're in the water at night and something bumps your mask, every time it's a great white shark. Doesn't matter what it is.
Could be. And the thing is, those masks, especially when you're a new diver, a fish this big looks.
Oh yeah. I think that I can blame Jaws for all of that because I saw 33 great whites in Mexico in one weekend, and granted you have to dive the cages there, so maybe that's why I was more confident. But if I could describe great whites, they're actually polite. They're kind of curious. They're polite, and they're not looking to. If we were on the menu, there'd be 80 deaths a day.
Yeah. Do you actually, because you talked about how you're like, I don't really care for the ocean anymore. Do you dive or anything recreationally?
I do now. Yeah. I think it was the love of the ocean was beaten out of me.
Yeah.
Through the Navy, because I mean, just like anything in the military, we can make everything suck.
Oh yeah.
And so like I'm doing a combat diving course for 3 weeks in Rhode Island in January. It's like, that's freezing. It's cold. It's not fun. All we're doing is kicking and but once I realized, you go to Bimini, have a couple, daiquiris and jump in the ocean. It's awesome. And so I got back into scuba diving and like the fun diving, like that you can see stuff, you can interact with the animals, you can go diving on wrecks. Like there's a place in Kentucky of all places where I was diving in a lake and they have dinosaurs on the bottom just so you could act like you're Jurassic diving.
Where's this place in Kentucky? Because
Kentucky, like it looks like a mine shaft. The water's green, which is probably horrible, and it's just a place to go diving on the weekend. I used to live in Nashville. It's like an hour north, so I went up there to get recertified, and just like underwater parks for divers in Kentucky. So yeah, I mean, I love the ocean now. Like I was just in Florida for about a week, and nothing better than getting in the ocean, just getting past the breakers and the clear water, and just that's, that's home.
Yeah, the way you described the ocean and your kind of I'll say disdain for it was how I feel about saunas. I'll go to the gym sometimes and some of the guys be like, "Hey man, you want to hit the sauna?" I'm like, "Absolutely not," because I just spent too many years cutting weight. I'm like, "No,
Oh
nope."
yeah, I never thought of that. That's true. That the weight cut, that's got to be the hardest part.
Yeah, and I like I've spent so much time in a sauna that even a leisurely 15-minute sit at this point in time, I'm like, nope, not doing it. Still,
Yeah.
even if I'm there with my water, I'm like, still not doing it. So
they hit us so hard with water. That's one of the things that Navy SEAL trainees go through. That's how they. I mean, you can really make people panic with water, torture them with the cold of the bone. We'd be in like Iraq where you wouldn't think there's much water in combat, and we would walk a couple miles out of the way just to avoid getting our feet wet.
Oh,
like,
really?
I don't like this. Oh yeah, we'll go this way, and the snipers are leading the way, and they take us up a wrong. So I'm not having wet boots all night.
Dude,
but yeah, now I love the ocean. That's my idea of a good time. If I'm not throwing my driver on the golf course into the woods, I want to be on the beach.
It's so funny to hear you say that you would walk several miles out of the way just to keep your feet from getting wet. Cause like you guys are special ops. Like you guys are the Navy SEALs.
Yeah.
Like you just don't care. You don't give a.
I mean, we can do it. And it's like, you don't have to like it. You just have to do it. But it was just ingrained in us sort of. And maybe it wasn't a couple miles, but there was even a mission we did. It was in the operator where they had these terrorists on this peninsula that they made IEDs, improvised explosive devices. There's one way to drive in and they're going to blow you up, and you can't carpet bomb it because there's the majority of war zones are people just trying to live. You don't want to kill innocent people, and we can't fast roll because it's so small. They'll shoot us down. And they came to us with like, well, think outside the box. How do you fix this? And everyone kind of looks at each other. We're like, well, it's going to suck, but we can swim in. So we did. I mean, we swam in 19 terrorists, 10 houses, 17 SEALs, and 2 dogs. And we got in there at night. We killed every terrorist and then swam out before the sun came up. And the next day, this is a cool headline. The locals had a block party because the bullies are all dead. So they have this big block party to the point where a reporter from a Baghdad newspaper came up and interviewed the women that were left in the house, and they asked who came last night, and the headline said they were ninjas and they came with lions.
Ninjas with lions. Awesome. Yeah, I remember reading that. But by the way, your storytelling. I like the fact I listened to your audiobook, and I like the fact that you narrated it, first of all, which is awesome because most people don't. And in your writing style, I don't know. I'm assuming you had a ghostwriter for the book, but it's a lot of your personality because I've listened to your interviews, and it's funny. Like I found myself laughing. The way that you deliver stories and whatnot is hilarious to me, man.
I owe my brother that too. He's had his own morning show for like 30 years, and he just always knew how to tell a joke, and I learned that too. But it was my wife that convinced me. She's like, one turnoff for me when I'm buying an audiobook is if the author's not narrating and I don't want to listen to him. Yep. And she's like, no one can tell your stories, and it's going to take 7 straight days of rereading the same line. But once you get done with the product, you're going to be happy. And I'm happy. It was fun to read it, to hear the stories, to do my little fake accents or whatever, but it was good. And even the other book, The Way Forward, Dakota Meyer and I, Medal of Honor recipient Marine, wrote that, and we both did our part to read it. So I don't want someone else telling my story. I'll just tell it. It's fun. And I love audiobooks too. They're great for anything. So I was happy with that. I still listen to it. It's crazy though, because I did have a few people help me, a couple editors, a couple people with the ghostwriting, but it was because I kept a journal. My father told me when I joined the Navy, he said, take a journal, take a page a day of what you did, because you might write a book one day. And I remember in 1996 thinking, who the hell would want to read my book? But I did. And I had the notes, and then we kind of put it together. And it is the way to tell a story, some sailor language. And I like really short, direct sentences followed by a 5-line sentence, hopefully with proper grammar. That's where the editors come in.
Listen, you talk about your dad, man. When you were talking about your family in the book, you kind of painted the picture that your dad was the one who had faith in you, and like a lot of your family was otherwise naysayers. Talk to me about that.
They weren't naysayers to me because they wanted encouragement. Like the last thing my brother yelled to me as I was getting on the plane in Butte, Montana, to go to Great Lakes, Illinois for boot camp was good luck. And I remember that. And they're all behind me, but behind, like, come on, this guy's not, there's no way. But my dad's funny because I think he's overly optimistic. Like when he sees, especially when I was when he sees a picture of anyone in combat, he's like, that's you. I know that's you. He said, there was a picture of in Life magazine of drown proofing where they tie our hands behind our backs and our feet together, throw us in the pool, and they're just teaching you not to freak out through negative reinforcement. And he said, Rob, I know that's you. I can tell your calf muscles. And I'm like, Dad, I haven't even left for the Navy yet. That's not me.
Well, I don't know. I mean, who knows? Because you talked about in your book how I think it was Greg, the guy who you said he could identify you from the gear that you were wearing and your walk.
Yeah, by the way, yeah, that's how much training we did together though, because we were big believers into effective communication without talking and repetition. Like if you want to be great at something, do it 10,000 times. So we could just, he could just tell who I was by my gear and how I walked. And that's something else that's cool. Just because if you work with people, you can tell by a silhouette on a ridgeline who your guy is.
Oh yeah.
And that's again, just because you do it over and over and over again. If you want to win, practice, and that's, master the basics.
Yeah. I was actually working in Singapore, and one of my colleagues from the 14th story of this office building that we have was watching me cross the crosswalk down on the street and called my cell phone while I was walking across, and I answered the phone like, hello. And they're like, hey, is that you walking across the crosswalk? And I said, yeah, it is. And they're like, yeah, I can see you. I'm up in the office. And that's not a testament to us being together that much. It's a testament to how terrible my walk is. It's very Neander. Like I've been told I walk like I'm on a hunt all the time. So,
but yeah, the book was a lot of fun to write. It was a crazy adventure because it's the whole thing that a lot of times when you're planning, something else is going to happen. It's an example recently is it's not what you worry about on Monday morning. It's what hits you at Thursday at night randomly. Like we're talking about the Democratic primaries, where is it going to be Biden or Elizabeth Warren? All of a sudden we get hit with a lockdown, a pandemic. Well, guess what? Worry about something else. Most of the stuff you worry about never happens. But if you make yourself available, you have more opportunity. And I forget this quote that I have, but someone said, wherever you are, be there. And just make yourself available. And I just because I was available, I got on some of the big missions, and that's what the book's about. That doesn't matter what you look like or where you're from, you can do it. Just take the shot.
Yeah, exactly. But when it came down to Neptune Spear, Operation Neptune Spear, though, there was a bit of like timing on that part, because you guys were kind of primed to be the selected group for that because you had just come off of a deployment.
It was all timing. Because we had just finished, it might have been my 12th or 13th deployment, and I was just running some outstations where we're trying to monitor cross-border stuff, but we didn't know anything about it and about Bin Laden. And we got back home and we're just doing training trips. And the reason they picked us is because we got back from war, we went on leave, and then we came back, and now we're supposed to be training. So we're supposed to be going to Florida for diving. We're supposed to be going to Nevada for rock climbing. We're supposed to be doing this. So locals didn't notice. They would notice if the team that's on standby left. They would notice in Afghanistan, if the team that was over there stopped doing missions and started training. They wouldn't notice if we would. So that was definitely luck. And then they just picked the most senior guys with the most senior qualifications, so that if we lose half the guys, like we almost did, we have redundancy and we have half a team that still has half the qualifications as for a sniper, breacher, communicator, medic, things like that. So yeah, it was a lot of luck. Right place, right time.
I talk about this all the time with my career, because people ask, like, the secret formula to success or something like that. I'm like, man, you can be a great athlete. You can know how to market yourself. You can speak well in front of the TV. You can, be not hurtful to the eyes or whatever. But at the end of the day, like, there could have been one fight in my career where 2 weeks out of fight, I could have twisted an ankle, not been able to compete. And that could have been the key fight that I needed to have someone recognize me or see me that was like, hey, we need to have this guy on the big show type of thing. And it's like, there's so many variables that just come into this. You can't just bank on, I'm the best in the world.
Injuries. Whenever you're doing something, Murphy's going to show up. Something's going to go wrong. Even with when we went in after Bin Laden, we came up with the perfect plan that we rehearsed every single night. And one night, the boss asked, what's the worst thing that could happen? And one of the guys said the helicopter could crash in the front yard. I mean, that's the worst thing. So let's talk about that for 30 seconds. And then our entire lives were based on that thing crashing in the front yard.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, which wasn't a crash. It was the pilot putting it down to save everyone's lives. And pilots don't get nearly enough credit for all the stuff they do.
Yeah. Did you say in the book that was due to the fact that the fence, the walls were different construction or something that allowed the air to pass through or something like that?
Yeah, the pilots were explaining an effect. One, because they had mud walls instead of the chain link that we trained on. And then I think it was a little bit warmer than we thought. that was supposed to be, which I guess makes the air thinner or was something like that. But once the pilot, and we're lucky we had the 4 best pilots in the world, which are all Army. He realized that if a junior pilot would power this up and try to take it out, but that'll roll it and we'll kill everyone on board. But if I can pin it on the wall, some of us might live type shit. And he did it, and he's amazing. And that's incredible. All 4 of those pilots were incredible. We're just, we were lucky to have them there. And they got us there. They got us out.
So this is the scenario that you guys spent 30 seconds on and then moved on.
We didn't even train on it. We just talked about it. Okay, what happened? Like, what happens if this car leaves and this car leaves? Who's taking which car? How are we going to follow them? What's the rules of engagement? What if this one goes down here? Who does what? And literally that's it. And then I think that was like a day before we left. Like, okay, if this crashes, we're going to just, with whatever we got, we're going to continue mission. We know where he is. So we, at the very least, we got to get guys to the 3rd floor of this building, because this woman that found him is she's 100% convinced he's there, and I think she's right.
This is this left brain math side of me acting up right now. But have you ever done like the math on the number of hours you put into training to prep for like a mission? Like, we went on this mission, like Neptune Spear. You went on that mission, and let's say that mission took like 3 hours or whatever it took. How many hours of prep went into that 3-hour mission?
Well, the whole thing was prep, from before 9/11 to our tactics to how they changed when we eventually faced Al Qaeda in combat.
Yeah.
Like the last time there had been serious combat was Vietnam. We're using their tactics. That's a way different animal, way different technology. So we need to change it based on who's getting shot. So even every single mission we did, which we went out every night, especially in Iraq in 2007, we're going out every single night engaging with the enemy. But we're learning from that, because as soon as you get done, I don't want to over talk what we're going to do. I want to talk about what I want to debrief this. And I don't want to hear how awesome you were. I want to hear what you screw up and what you learn. How did Al Qaeda, because they're looking at the internet and our tactics, how have they adjusted? How do we readjust? And then how do we change this up? And I don't care if you're the junior guy in the room or the senior guy, what worked, what didn't work, how do we change it to keep it safer, to make us more effective? We learned that because watching movies, people always scream and go clear left, clear. Just shut up. If you're pointing this way, I'll assume it's clear. Yeah. Just stop. Might as well be yelling. Here we are. So it was training up to the point that we had done so many things in Afghanistan and in Iraq that when they first told us it's Bin Laden, we said, okay, are we going now? We don't need to train. We'll go fight because we know how to fight. And the only reason we trained so much was because we needed to prove to the decision makers that we're the right guys, because President Obama had big choices to make there. I mean, everything's political. And if he screws this up like they did Desert One in 1980, he's never getting reelected. So it's on him. We need to make, because we want to go. So we're going to show them that we're good. But because we thought we were so good, the worst thing happened. We were able to get in and out of that place because we spent so much time on what the exterior looked like, and we knew who was wearing what. So I mean, everything worked out. But we were training all the time, and that's even in combat, even overseas. If you're not doing a mission, we'll do some training. We'll go to the range and shoot. Like we're saying, repetition with the transition to your pistol, whatever you're using, what kind of rifle. Just what now? What do we do next? Again, and like keeping it, like I said, keeping it simple. When I talk to football teams, I always tell them that it doesn't matter why it's 2nd and 15. It just is. And the clock is ticking. If we get done with this game, we can talk about it in films, or if we live through this mission, we can talk about it when we get home. Stop hitting it with why. It's right in front of you right now, one step at a time.
Yeah, no, I was asking that question because like I did the math one time, like once my camp starts, for every minute I'm scheduled to be in the ring, I spend about 9 hours in prep per minute,
Oh, that is all.
That's just,
I should have kept my journal.
That's just with like when the camp started, right? Like all my training hours. So it's like, yeah, it's about 9 hours per minute of scheduled time. So, if I happen to end the fight in 3 minutes, then it's like, well, technically I spent, I don't know, like 27 hours per minute training or something.
Just to ask you a question, when you get in the octagon, how much of the adrenaline takes over for the conditioning until you kind of level out?
I've always been really good at managing my adrenaline and managing, I would say, stress response, right? I mean, I think some people are innately good at this, and it's those people that are innately good at managing their response to stress who also in turn train that become astronomically better. And so I can remember when for example, my first fight in the UFC was I suddenly stepped onto the big stage. But to me, I was just like, well, I'm my worst critic. truly, like if I lose at the end of the night and I got to come home, like, man, the man in the mirror is the worst critic of all.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it doesn't matter if I have 10 people in the audience watching or if I have 10 million people on television watching. At the end of the day, I got to face myself. And when I come up short, it's like, you failed. And so for me, like going from a bar of 500 people watching me fight to an arena of, 8,000 people watching me fight was no big deal because the pressure was all on me to begin with. So the whole management of like that adrenaline dump and learning how to do that, a lot of guys need. This is why I tell young athletes, like, take your time in the amateur ranks because you learn these intangible things. And, I mean, and it would work the same for like SEALs training. Like you can learn to, shoot a rifle and you can learn to all your, close quarter combat tactics and all these different kinds of things. But like you said at the beginning, at the top of this discussion, it's training, they're not going to kill you. It's a little different when it's like real bullets and, there's real stakes on the line. And so, for me walking into this stuff, like I had an easy time managing adrenaline, an easy time managing stress. And I tell young athletes, like, use your amateur fights to learn how to do those things, learn how to listen to your corner, learn how to improvise, learn how to pivot if you need to in a fight with your strategy and whatnot, making sure you're in tune with your coaches and all those kind of intangibles. So all that to say that even still, like when you're walking out, there's obviously nerves and everything. And I always describe like walking out, the moment that you hit the arena, you remember those, like, the lamps that you may have had one when you were a kid, like it was a big glass ball and it had the electrodes running through it and you could touch the glass and it would follow your hands and you could kind of feel the electric. Like that's what it's like when you walk into the arena. And once you're in there and the cage door is closed, it's like, as soon as that first punch is thrown, it's just like everything that you did just comes into play. It's like all the anticipation, the nerves and all that kind of stuff. It's gone. And now it's just another Tuesday in the gym.
That's awesome. I love how you said the management of stress. When I first went to Afghanistan, I assumed the worst because of what they put on TV, that every corner is going to be a suicide bomber. Everyone's shooting us. And I remember like overusing energy to duck and cover, get behind stuff when I didn't need to. And I looked at my boss who'd been in combat before. And I remember looking at how cool he was. And I remember thinking, you know what? I want to be cool like that. And and I talked to him later. I'm like, I'm so happy that you weren't afraid and I got to watch you work. He said, oh no, it wasn't that I wasn't afraid. I just didn't show that I was afraid to you.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you're feeling. If you can portray calm, just like panic, I think calm is contagious also. And it got to a point where even when the bullets started flying, the night just got a little more exciting. It just got more real. Now we're going to do what we trained to do. So that's how you react or respond actually to stress is that's awesome. That's it's very cool.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, I mean, even when you're internally reacting that way, if you're continually externally telling yourself not to react that way, that has an impact on you internally as well. Like if I got to keep this face of calm and I got to keep this posture of calm and, whatever body language of calm, it's going to internally affect my hormone response to the stress as well.
I got to ask one more question.
Go ahead.
How in the world do MMA fighters not show a single emotion when they get leg kicked? I've always been amazed by that. Because I did some training, nothing at your level, but like I've been kicked in the leg and like it hurts for weeks.
I'll just say this: when I was competing, I probably got kicked in the leg as many times as you squeezed the trigger in training, right? So you're used to it. First of all, obviously that adrenaline factor. I mean, like when you read a book like Luttrell's and you think about those 4 guys that were on his mission and how they got shot and they just kept going, even though you're still operating. And that's kind of the way this is. When I fought Chuck as an example, something that's a bit more extreme, Chuck kicked me in the arm, broke my left arm. And I just kind of like, I shook my arm out like, and I knew it was broken. Well, I knew something was wrong with it. But then when I threw the first punch and I felt the bones go like clack, clack, like the 2 bones in my arm, I knew right away. I was like, oh, I know this feeling because my left hand did that when I fought Loazo. Like I'd been there, the experience, like I broke my hand. So I know this feeling. I'm like, oh, my arm is broken. And, but you have so much adrenaline. I'll tell you this, watch the video of me getting my glove cut off my hand in the locker room after the fight 15, 20 minutes later, and you're going to see a much different response to that pain.
Yeah, definitely. That's great. That's crazy. That's the legit man-to-man blunt force. I've always been impressed too, just by they make the leg kick seem like it's nothing. That's a lot. And that's a by the way, that dude that just kicked you, he's a professional too. He knows his technique.
Exactly. Like he's been kicking with that shin so much that the shin is like sharpened like a sword, so it's like although my leg has the conditioning for it, trust me, when those kicks land, you can feel the thud. You may not feel the pain right away, but in your head, you're going, that's probably going to hurt later.
I'm going to feel that one later.
Yeah, that's not good. That's not good. Because no joke, like I'll wake up the next morning after a fight and I'll be like, when did I get punched in the armpit? Like, why does my armpit hurt?
Oh, I guess the conditioning too with the it's not fighting, but when we were always convinced it was going to be a nighttime high altitude, high opening jump into Pakistan to get Bin Laden. So we train all the time and we would just put ridiculous stuff on us, everything from the 400 or 500 pound bundles that one guy jumps to, an interpreter or whatever. And we're training on it. And it's like, it clicks in a little bit, like at, 20,000 feet at night, that this isn't normal.
Yeah.
Why am I so comfortable here?
Yeah.
And then, and it's the after the fact that like, yeah, that sucked.
Yeah. No,
even training so much, we realized that instead of doing the night jump at 11 p.m., let's do it at 4 a.m. Because if we lose a jumper, then we have the whole day to find them.
That's a terrible contingency plan.
Yeah, it sucks. That's what we always said too. The thing with skydiving is no matter how bad it goes, you're going to land.
Yeah, that's actually true. Have you had a bad chute malfunction before?
Yeah, I had one horrible malfunction. I was jumping a bundle, and what a bundle is, it's about the size and weight of a Coke machine. And the reason you jump it is because you're going to need extra breaching charges, extra bullets, extra batteries for radios. And not every guy can carry all the stuff. So one or two or three or four guys will jump bundles full of gear. And we were training on it, and they just switched the one of the systems. The first thing with it, so a bundle's connected to you with a 10-foot tether. Yeah, so I'm jumping this big bundle, and it was I think it was it wasn't a self set. It was there's still someone setting it, I think, but they had just changed over to a new design for a canopy. So it's a high performance canopy, more cells, it goes faster, and it really turns. And so there were some systems they had with the old system and some with the new. And we realized with some of the stuff that if they don't change it to everything being high performance, you can get a really bad malfunction. Okay, so it was mine happened to be a high altitude, high opening, and I'm fortunate because instead of pulling, normally we pull with a bundle at 5,500 feet, but because mine was a high opening, I tried to pull at 10, and that's when I got into a violent spin where I think 3 of the cells opened, and then because they're opening and sucking air and other ones aren't, it starts to dive. Like you're almost coming in on a hook turn. So the canopy is diving this way. I got a 500-pound bundle here, and I'm in the middle, and it's just spinning, and it's picking up speed, and it's just going fast. I can hear it, whoosh, whoosh. And I was looking, so I have line twists behind me, and the cutaway system is right here. So I can't cut it away. And there's like 4 3-ring devices that are used for any cutaway on a parachute, but I can't move it because of my head. And so I'd already burnt through. If I would have pulled at 5,500 feet, I would be dead because I just burned 6,000 feet in a spin. And I don't know what it was, the strength you get in a situation. I remember saying, if you ever want to see your daughters again, you need to cut this away now. And so I yanked it out. The thing popped off. The bundle has its own parachute, so it zipped over to this farmer's field and opened. And this canopy inflated just because of that. We slowed down, and the realization kind of set in that I would have been dead if I pulled at 5.5. And so then I came back, and one of my bosses was saying, "What happened up there? You look like you just saw a ghost." And I was like, "Yeah, I should have just died. We need to fix this." And then they didn't. And within a year, the exact same malfunction on the exact same drop zone, Lance Vaccaro was killed with that same parachute system.
Well, so it was the same exact malfunction with him.
Exact same thing. Didn't open all the way. He couldn't cut it. Too much pressure. He didn't have the time. I mean, Lance Vaccaro is one of the best human beings I've ever met. One of the physically most gifted, strong dudes. And if he couldn't get that out, I wouldn't have gotten it out. I just, again, being lucky, I pulled higher, and that's the only reason I lived. And then they did change it eventually, but it's like, okay, that wasn't worth it, but at least we changed it.
Do you still jump today?
No, I haven't jumped in a while, and it's like scuba diving. I'll probably get back into it. I was really into that. I would do that. I would do probably 11 trips a year out to Arizona just to jump and just to teach. I got it to the as an AFF instructor. I love jumping. It's still awesome. I just haven't done it in a while, but I'll probably get back into it. It's if people haven't skydived and you're a skydiver, I mean, it'll change your life. It just opens up.
It's amazing.
I would recommend, even if go there, take the 3-hour class, get a tandem so you can see it, and then take the 10-hour class and get your license. It's just cool. It's just a very cool, everything from the cult of skydivers to the obviously the free fall, and then the canopy ride when it's just nothing but you and your feet and 4,000 feet below your boots. Like, it's just really cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. When I first started jumping, I was all about free fall. And then I started, like, because they would be like, oh, well, you need to deploy your canopy at 5,500 feet. And I'm like, man, that's just such a long, stupid ride down, because I just wanted to free fall. But man, now as I jump, I really appreciate the canopy work, and, finding a spot on the field where it's like, okay, I'm going to land in this spot.
I'm going to hit that.
And seeing how close you can get to something. And so, I appreciate it. But I mean, look, I probably have less skydiving experience than you do fight experience. I'm probably only logged maybe 40 jumps to date at this point. So I'm just a
canopy stuff. We used to go to courses like down at DeLand, Florida, and out in Eloy for canopy instruction, where we're jumping at 6 but pulling right away, and they're teaching us everything from the rear risers, you can actually ascend and descend, and how to turn, the one thing they taught us that helped the most was bumping each other going the same direction, because we know even at night, when it's talk about fear, but if you bump each other going the same direction, you're going to be just fine. So just getting used to stuff like that. And I mean, the only thing really dangerous about skydiving is people get too comfortable and they start jumping smaller canopies.
Yep.
So they'd want to try to start swooping. And that, I mean, you hit the ground at 70 miles an hour, you're probably going to die. And that's, I mean, your parachute's going to open, your reserve's going to open. But just, don't be jumping the 70 square foot canopy when you don't have enough jumps to do it. Like there's guys that, if someone's jumping with Red Bull on the canopy, they've done it before. They're pretty good at it. So don't try to beat them right away. The Red Bull guys are good.
Yeah, but I actually did my first jump. Oh, and by the way, I'm headed out to Eloy in a couple weeks. It's been 2 years since I jumped, because I was living in Singapore, and with COVID and everything, I just wasn't able to get any jumps in. So I'm not current with my license right now. So I'm going to go back out, do some refresher courses, and hopefully I'll be able to get, at least a half a dozen jumps in, and then I'll head back out a few weeks after that. But yeah, so that's where I got certified, was out in Eloy, and I love jumping out there. But one of the instructors that I had, he had over 14,000 jumps. And I asked him at one point in time, because I jumped a couple times when I was in college, and I said to him, they called him Monkey. I said, hey, Monkey, how long have you been jumping? And he said, my first jump was in 1999 or something. And I was like, man, I knew it. I was like, I've been in this sport longer than you. I said, I jumped in 98, and they're giving me these crap instructors. This guy's had more free fall time than I have vacation time in a year.
Well, they realized that in that community too, Eloy is probably the best place in the world to skydive. And like we got instructors out there from Red Bull, like Luke Akins and Jeff Provenzano. And like Akins was the guy that did the jump without a parachute and landed in the net. Like that's pretty much putting your life on the fact that you're really good at this.
Did you do any of the wind tunnel work out there?
Oh yeah, the wind tunnel is where everyone should go to. Even if you don't ever want to skydive, find a wind tunnel and get in it. I think the wind tunnel is the best. You're gonna. That's the first part of the military freefall school. They have an old wind tunnel at Fort Bragg that you get into, and that's just the importance of teaching you that everything you do in 120 mile an hour wind is the opposite of what. Like if you fall out of bed, you're gonna put your hand down. If you do that up there, you're gonna flip.
Yeah.
So just learning how to fly the dirty air, and it's a great skill. Just learning that. How to avoid backsliding, how to avoid a spin. Like if you jump and something's off and you start a spin, you need to know how to counter a spin and all that stuff. But I mean, wind tunnel is just fun. Like there's wind tunnels in Vegas that you go with, and the wind tunnel you can do after a few beers, which you really shouldn't. Skydiving for real.
Yeah.
The wind tunnel is I mean, that's obvious. I just kind of make a shitty joke there, but
no, I'll say this though about the wind tunnel, because the first time that I executed a barrel roll when I was skydiving, I was like, oh, this is easy. This is easy to do. What you don't realize is that you're actually horizontally covering about 20 meters when you barrel.
You're covering some ground big time.
So then when you get in the wind tunnel, the glass makes you very aware of how much distance you're
Oh
actually
yeah,
covering. So the
yeah.
first time I tried a
Very
barrel
slow.
roll in the wind tunnel, like I smacked into the glass, and the instructor, like he looks at me like, "You okay?" I'm like, "Dude, I'm gonna do this all day. Like, don't worry about me, man. Like, I've been here before."
Yeah, one good thing is I can take a hit.
Exactly.
But yeah, the wind tunnel though, like they're opening up pretty much all over the place. They've got them in most major cities, and like I said, even if you never skydive, get in a wind tunnel. It's worth the money, and it's just a blast.
Yeah.
And that's another thing where you wake up the next day sore in place you didn't know you could be sore for what.
Yeah, and that's what I always tell people. I mean, the wind tunnel once you're floating, it feels exactly like you're falling. It's the same
Oh, yeah.
the same sensation because the wind is just blowing past your face. Like I think people that have never jumped before actually think like when they jump out of a plane that they're going to get that feeling of like the feeling of
No.
being on that roller coaster, you know, where you lose
Nope.
your stomach and it doesn't
Yeah,
happen.
yeah. You can get that if you jump out of a helicopter or a balloon, but when you jump out of a plane, it's just noise and wind right away, and it's and I mean the wind tunnels where the excellent skydivers learn that's where they train most of the time, and it's well, I remember we were jumping with some of the Eloy guys, and I talked to one of my buddies, and I'm like, this guy's amazing at free flying. He goes, yeah, but think about it this way: he's a 40-year-old man who lives in a toy. Like he's good at this.
No, well, here I'll tell. This is a funny story. So I went over to the wind tunnel when I was out there getting my certification and to do some extra wind tunnel work. There was actually a special ops team that was there working on some, maneuvers in the air and whatnot, fully geared. It was pretty cool. And I got to fly with them a little bit just because they were fans, which was nice because I got extra,
really cool.
I got extra time in the wind tunnel, which is not cheap, by the way.
Oh no, it's pretty expensive.
Yeah, exactly. But so when I was one of the instructors out there, we were working on maneuverability, and he looks at me like we're floating around in the wind tunnel. He looks at me, he goes like this, and he motions me like, come on. And I'm like, I'm floating like, what? And he goes, and I'm like, and in my head, I think he wants me to hit him, but that can't be right. And the next thing I know, man, I get punched in the helmet. Like he just straight up punches me and he goes, come on, like, come get me. And I was like, oh, it's on. And man, I couldn't catch this guy to save my life. He was flying around this wind tunnel like Peter Pan. So he beat the crap out of me, man. Like he kept hitting me and kicking me. And so finally we get out of the wind tunnel. I was like, all right, we got to do another round. And he's like, okay, fine. We get like, before we get back in, I was like, listen, if I even get a hold of your shoestring, it's your ass. Like if I just like, all I need is a shoestring. I said, and you're going like, once I get a hold of you, you're done. And I, for the life of me, man, like I couldn't even get near him. It was crazy.
It's incredible. Especially when they crank up the wind, because the free flying is terminal velocity. And and they do that in that tunnel with dirtier air. But when they pipe that up too, it's almost scary to see how high you can go. I was nervous. I get fired out of that tube at the top, like somebody in Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. But I mean, what a great training plan. It's just fun. That's just a good time.
Yeah. What do you do for fitness at this point? Like, what do you do to keep in shape? And like, what's your daily grind like now?
It's like anyone in our mid to late 40s, like there's arthritis and bumps and bruises. So I'm not as intense as I used to be, but I'm a big believer in it. I mean, first thing in the morning, you got to get 15 to 20 minutes of something. And I live in a hilly area. I got my body armor. I like to put that on and do some like walk runs up and down hills in the morning, stuff like that. And then I still lift a little bit, but like the CrossFit stuff it hurts at this point. But I used to travel so much. I was given about 300 speeches a year. So I have a lot of time on treadmills in hotels. That's kind of, whatever calisthenics and stuff I can get. But ideally, the weight room. And then I just like to be outside. I think I'm a big believer that vitamin D from the sun and just getting outside. Like I think depression is in your bed and on your couch. You need to get up and move. And I think it's huge for mental health. And I'm seeing a lot of former Navy SEALs that are doing that stuff on Instagram and things, saying your mental health, get outside, move, just do stuff. So whatever I can do. And I'm getting into yoga, which I think is great.
Yoga.
Yeah.
I would love to hear the 22-year-old version of yourself say
he'd kick my ass.
Yeah. Right.
And there's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah, exactly. No, the problem is like, granted, like you said, bumps and bruises, but man, I still grind like I'm 25. I end up paying for it like later on. I'll go through a leg workout. And I've never been one much for CrossFit or like, I'm very intelligent about the kind of abuse I put my body under. Like I won't even do like plyometric box jumps where I'm jumping off of a box. Cause I'm like, if I'm going to put that kind of abuse on my body, I'd rather be playing a game of basketball, snowboarding,
Right.
wakeboarding, whatever. Like, I'm not just going to jump off this box for nothing. So I'm intelligent about the things I do, but man, I'll put myself through this like grinding leg workout, and then I'll come home like in this semi comatose state that afternoon and have to lay
Yeah.
down for an hour and a half just to recover from it because
That, and it was, I think I saw it on a meme somewhere there where they said the toilet doesn't care that yesterday was leg day. Just
that's about the God's honest truth right there. But I'll tell you what's worse for you though than all the abuse you put on your body is flying on planes like that, man. Like what
I agree.
can you sleep on a plane when you fly?
I can sleep on a plane. Yeah, I'm pretty good at that. But just sitting in that position, like I have really tight hip flexors now from sitting in a chair. You know, if I can stand up, I'd love to.
It'd be
It's
like
just,
this cranked neck like this, and then
oh yeah.
you're walking into your speech like, welcome everybody, thanks for coming. It's terrible.
Yeah, the neck crinks. Yeah, yeah, flying. Yeah, it's just it's everything's a grind. I think if you do it the wrong way, but yeah, that's you know, my old routine that was good as far as traveling is get to where you're going, work out, eat room service, wake up, work out, speak, get on a plane, and then maybe you've earned a cocktail or two and watch The Office.
Earned a cocktail or two. So I'll ask you this: your mentality, the mentality of, do you have to earn things like that? Like, do you force yourself to earn these kinds of things?
It's not so much I earned it, but I will put myself on restriction and not allow any more of it because you know, if you can realize a problem that's right in front of your face, there's no point in lying to yourself when you know what it is. So just like, you know, drinking on planes, take it away. And then if you can do 4 cities and behave yourself, then maybe the 5th flight.
Yeah. See, even for myself, like I would be like, I'll give you an example. And this is, I mean, this was more of when the thing is nutritionally, I live exactly the way that I did when I was competing. Like I live the same way that I did when I was making weight, except for I can pretty much eat what I want to eat because I'm burning enough calories. Like, but I don't eat any kind of junk food. So like when I was training, if I ever started craving junk, I would say to myself, like, okay, if you just get on the treadmill and jog for 5 minutes, then you can have this junk, whatever that you wanted, if you still are craving it when you're done. And the thought of going through a full day of training and then just making myself go get on the treadmill for 5 more minutes was enough of a deterrent where I'm like, no,
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I need to start doing that to myself. That's really cool.
But in this, I mean, this trickles into my life, you know, I'm like, well, but I've gotten to the point now where I don't even really crave, like, I don't crave sweets and stuff like that anymore. You know, I don't know. My nutrition's just really on point. It's always been that way. I've kept myself. Even at this age, I'm sub 10% body fat. I know you talked in your book about like when your weight would jump up to like 230 and you're like, yeah, it's time to cut that stuff off.
Yeah, there was a time too, and it was actually Jocko that said I worked with him, and we were talking about lifting and running and all this stuff, and he said, well, if your goal should be if you can carry me after I've been shot with all my gear on, then you're in good shape. That's it. So that's, you know, I did learn that between lifting and cardio, you need to have your cardio up no matter what. But then with the wear and tear, one of my stories is after I got out, you know, from so much skydiving and so much, you know, grabbing the risers, so much climbing up ropes that, you know, I was weakening ligaments, and I never been hit in combat, never been hurt. And 2 years after I got out, I was bowling and I blew out a bicep just because it was just ready to go.
I think you told this story in your book. Did you?
Yeah, I did. I was with my friend.
I was like, this sounds very familiar.
And my mom still laughs about it. I'm like, Mom, this is not funny. This is like years of wear and tear. I blew and you think it's funny? And it is kind of funny because you're bowling.
Yeah. Yeah. Every time something like that happens, I'm like, what has happened to me? Like I would never get an injury bowling.
Yeah, years and years. Well, it's you go to the point too to go see a doctor about something like, well, how do we fix it? Like, we really don't at this age. You just live.
Other than like your biceps, how's the rest of your body doing with just the wear and tear from years of combat missions training?
Herniated discs are really common. You know what? A lot of guys that were in Afghanistan have bad stomachs just because we weren't used to that environment of everything from how they prepare food to how the food lives, how they serve it. That we're not used to it. So a lot of guys get weird. I have weird ulcers and stuff like that. You know, you can get treatment for them, but you can tell the digestive system. I can tell my lower back. It's like I said, like the reason I want to do yoga is because it hurts to wake up sometimes.
Oh yeah.
And just get out there and stretch. And then I can bullshit myself and say, well, I worked out, I guess, so I can have extra cream in my coffee.
Yeah, that's what I always tell people that like yoga practitioners. I'm like, no, yoga is not working out. It's the thing you do either before or after
Or
working
after.
out. You know, but unless you're doing like strength poses, like if you're down there like holding crow poses for 60-second
That's
type of
legit.
things and
Mhm.
doing inversion classes, then it's a little different.
You know what I like, and a lot of us are getting into, well, us meaning the older guys, is planks. The planks seem to be great. I think that that dude named Pilates invented them in World War One to
Yeah.
get core strength because you've been shot. That's good stuff.
So how long can you hold a plank for?
5 minutes is a good workout as far as one plank, and then I'd like to adjust it. I'll usually do like a 3 minute, a 2 minute, and then like a minute on each side, go back and forth and back up. And then the big one is the arch, just to strengthen my hip flexors, just because I'm going to blame it on flying in planes.
Flying in planes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can hear myself talking. I realize I'm making excuses for everything right now.
I'll ask you about that. Like, is that do you when you go through the training that you've been through, do you get to a point in life where you feel like you've deserved the ability to make excuses? You know?
Not really. I don't like the excuse or the blame game. We did some really good training, some really hard stuff, and I don't know. If I decide to sleep in one day, like till 10 or 11 in the morning, it's like, you know what, you don't need to be after it every day now, because that was 17 years at war. So if you want to sleep in, that's fine. And a lot of people are still after it, get up early, work out. That's awesome if you can do it. But I mean, a lot of people aren't built that way. So I highly recommend doing something active every day, especially starting the day to get the endorphins going. But I will give myself the day off every now and then, just again, to just the mental health aspect of everything. Just, get up, call some buddies, see how everyone's doing.
Yeah, I know. Well, you actually talked like it's balance, because what you just said reminded me of balance, and it was a story you told in your book about Instructor A and how he used comedy and how that was important for balance at the time. And sometimes I'm really bad about balance. Like it's like I can't turn that grind off. I don't know how. I'll give you an example. This is so stupid, but this really happened. I was sitting on this plane one time. I don't know where I was flying to, but I was cold. And I thought, like, man, I should get up and like get my jacket or something in my backpack, because I'm sitting here and I'm freezing. And I was like, nope, I'm just gonna sit here and freeze and just prove that I'm mentally tough enough to sit here and freeze for 2 hours. So I sit on this plane for the next 2 hours, literally, because the cold air is blowing on me, just shivering the whole time. Like, nope, I can handle this. Just dumb stuff. And I can't, like, it's like I can't turn that switch off. It's stupid. It's so dumb.
I'll still have high school age kids say they want to go to SEAL training, and they'll ask me, what should I do to prepare? And I'll say, what are you doing to prepare? And the one common answer is, I'm taking cold showers to prove that I can get used to it. I said, don't do that, because just face it when it gets there. If I told you in 30 days I'm going to kick you in the nuts as hard as I can, and in order to get ready for it, you had your best friend kick you in the nuts every single day, it's still going to suck when I do it. So just take it when it gets there. There's some things you're not going to get used to. Cold, I think, is one of them. I love the ice bath. It still sucks every time. Like the first minute is going to suck. You get through a minute, you can last 10 minutes or whatever. But it's not like it's like, oh, it's cold. I mean, again, it's with the face. You can pretend it's awesome, and people around you think, wow, he's not cold. He's freezing his ass off.
Dude, that's why I interviewed Wim Hof, and he was sitting on my podcast at the time wearing a beanie. And he's the Iceman. He sets all these world records sitting in ice. And I'm like, why are you wearing a beanie right now? And he's like, well, because I don't want to be cold right now. Like I was like, okay,
that's it. That's brilliant. That's brilliant.
Yeah, but I figured before
I could do it. I just don't want to right now.
Yeah, exactly. I figured, well, he set like world records, sitting in ice for like 8 hours straight or whatever. And I'm just thinking, like, well, then the ice just completely doesn't affect you. So surely you just don't get cold. And no, he does. So that's just how it goes for him.
That is very cool.
One of the comments that you made in your book, and I wanted to ask you about this, is because I wanted you to talk about this. My listeners, I think this would be something that would be good for them. Is like, you made this comment: truth didn't matter, but the only thing that mattered was belief. And you were talking about when you guys were swimming in the cold water at the time, and they made you guys take off your clothing. Do you remember this? And it was like everybody started believing they were colder because they didn't have clothes on, they were just swimming around their underwear rather than their full gear. And so in their mind, they were colder. And you were like, well, truth didn't actually matter, but belief of it did. Talk about this lesson that you learned, because this is something I think would be good for my listeners.
Yeah, it's actually a famous part of Hell Week, which is when you wake up on Sunday and you don't sleep essentially until Friday. Might be a Monday night or a Tuesday night. It's called the Steel Pier, and it's a pier in the bay, and they have you get in the water to tread water, and you're wearing your uniforms. And then slowly they have this life-saving drills in the Navy for like World War II when ships would sink. Like, take your shirt off, and then here's how you tie this to that and blow it up. And now you take your boots off over your neck, and then take off your pants and inflate them there, and tie the legs so that's inflatable. And then they have you start throwing your clothes up on the thing, and now you're just in your skivvies. And you think that you're colder now, even though it doesn't matter in the water. I mean, yes, there's some sort of warmth with a wetsuit, obviously, but you're not any colder, but you start to think you should be. And then people start freaking out, and then they start panicking, and that's when everyone panics. And then they pull you up on the pier, and you're laying on the very cold pier, and they're spraying you with this cold water. But because you think you're colder than you should be, the water's actually warmer out of the hose than it is in the water, and they have to get back in and out. And people just panic. And then it turns into, well, if he can't make it, he's definitely tougher than me. That means I can't make it. And people just start leaving. I had friends that we had an agreement that during Hell Week, you don't quit unless we talk to each other. Like, come to me and tell me. And then I never saw him again after Steel Pier until the next day when he was out, and he was in the regular Navy. But just a belief that something should be worse than it actually is. But also that, not necessarily everybody's tougher than you are. I mean, there are people that are tougher than you, can kick your ass, but I mean, a lot of people, you're tougher than you think. And it's just, again, the mindset, the mentality that, and even the take a step back and the realization, wait a minute, I'm not any colder than I was just a second ago. Plus, if something, doesn't matter how bad something sucks, you're going to get used to it. It's like the ice bath thing. Okay, it sucks, but I can do it. You can just push yourself through it with the mindset.
It's interesting that, well, let me ask you this. Yeah. And you give a stat in the book, it said about that the dropout rate in any given class for buds is like about 80%, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. About 80%.
What percentage of those people actually end up dropping out on their own after Hell Week?
After Hell Week is very, very rare. After Hell Week will be a performance drop, because it gets out of the complete physical stuff into stuff like dive medicine, dive physics, and things like that. So you can understand how to scuba dive. And then there's a part called pool competency, where it's just a really hard drill with old school scuba gear, where they tie it up in knots and throw you around for a while, and we'll get performance drop for that. I as far as quitting, I've heard of people quitting up to the very end for whatever personal reasons they had, but I mean, it was after Hell Week where one of our, because always they would say that, there's no room for you in this in the SEAL teams. Might as well quit now and avoid the rush. And right after Hell Week, we were taking a course, and he said, now when you get to your platoon, which most of you will, because you made it through Hell Week, I was like, wow, okay, okay, that's good. That's good to hear. So most guys that get through Hell Week get through the training. And even some of the performance rollbacks, they will get pushed through eventually. And yeah, if you don't quit during Hell Week, your chances are you're not going to quit anywhere.
Yeah. I just didn't know if like anybody ever actually, I mean, I'm sure it's happened. Like they made it through Hell Week, and then they get into that next phase, and then suddenly they just snap, like, I can't take this anymore. And then
yeah. I mean, if you're never done scuba diving before and you have a shitty rig on that doesn't really work, you get very claustrophobic under there. And I mean, even the first drill is sitting underwater. The water's right here, and you're breathing these old double hose actuators. But you can, if you get claustrophobic and you talk yourself into it, yeah, I mean, it can be scary. And then it doesn't get easier, and you just start to learn that everything's pretty much going to suck. And like, that's why I tell people that they want to join the military, start getting straight A's now and get to an academy and learn how to fly a jet, because it's probably way cooler.
Yeah. Well, that's actually that was kind of like my semi backup plan, I guess. I don't know, because I was good at math. Like that's what I majored in college. And I was like, well, if I have a math degree, then I could probably fly jets and be good at that.
Yeah.
And, so, but I'll tell you this, I mean, there was a lot of takeaways from your book, but one of them that I really appreciated was the story that you told about getting kicked in the nuts. And it's like, no matter how much you make yourself grind through something, like if you hate it, you can never get used to it to the point where you're like, I don't hate this anymore. Like I could take ice baths for the rest of my life, and I've spent plenty of time in ice baths, and I'm never going to wake up one day and be like, oh man, these ice baths are so warm. Like I can't
This is relaxing.
I can't acclimate to this. So it's like, why put yourself through all this extra torture in order to just go through the suck? You just embrace it while you're there. I think that was my big takeaway from your book.
I think it's the reward, because like we said about earning stuff, I know this is going to suck for the next 10 or 12 minutes, but afterwards I'm going to feel amazing. This is going to heal me. And again, it's got to be with this is going to be I don't want to drop off 7 clicks in the Konar province to hike the mountain, but it's worth not getting shot down. So once we get there and I got the drop on them, that hump was worth it. So I think, a lot of the reward that, you put like 5 more minutes, I get a Snickers bar.
Exactly. Listen, Rob, I know I'm a little bit over on time. I appreciate you coming on and everything. And by the way, I'll just say this, like on a personal level, I really, really enjoyed reading your book, The Operator. Definitely going to pick up the other book, The Way Forward. Where, just for the listeners, where can they find the books? I got my audiobook on it's an iBook on my iPhone.
Yeah, they're on Apple. The best way to get the books is robertjoneil.com. That's Oneill. Shaquille screwed up the way we spell O'Neill, but it's Oneill.com. And there's access to both The Way Forward, and then The Operator is actually the fun thing I've been doing with that is I will, within reason, write anything you ask me to write. And I get the funniest requests for one of my favorites was a dude was buying his buddy a book for his birthday, and he had me write something like, Brian, you kill at selling mattresses like I killed Bin Laden, or something stupid like that. So a lot of fun with the personalized books, but everything's there at robertjoneil.com, and I appreciate that.
That's awesome, man. By the way, did you narrate The Way Forward?
Yes, both Dakota and I narrated our parts, so you can hear both of us. And if you haven't heard Dakota Meyer's story about the Medal of Honor, he was awarded the youngest living Marine to get it since Vietnam. It's incredible. And it's just that book's just a book about, okay, now what? Like, okay, here's a male cheerleader from Kentucky and a white guy from Montana who couldn't swim. And now what? Now that he gets a Medal of Honor, I'm in Bin Laden's house, but what next? What do we do now? Because you can't always just live on the past. But what is the way forward?
Trust me, man. This is a problem that athletes themselves run into every single day, man. A lot of guys don't know how to reinvent themselves or move forward beyond that career, because that ends up being your first, that is your first love. And then moving on beyond that, it's a tough thing to do, because you got to give that thing up. So whether it's, most guys have to give it up physically. Fortunately for me, I was mentally like, you know what? It's time for me to move on and do something else. So I was blessed with that. But by the way, I also I liked your post. You had a post on your Instagram that was like, not a real terrorist, not an actual terrorist, actual terrorist. Hilarious with the trucker.
A lot of us get lost in the sauce, and too many people, especially on social media, are just losing their senses of humor. I think humor is the first key to success and how to lead a team. If people want to be there, can take a wrap off, keep your humor, keep morale high, you're going to be a lot more successful.
Great lesson, man. Hey, I appreciate you coming on today. Really, really do. Thanks.
I appreciate it, man. Anytime. This is fun.
Yeah, and I had a good time chatting with you. I knew I would, man. I was really looking forward to this conversation.
So did I. Like I said, I appreciate your flexibility with yesterday. We won't get into the plumbing issues or whatever, but thanks for just remaining flexible. And then, like you were saying, like the Wi-Fi is down. We're supposed to do this talk, but now it works out.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much, Rob, for coming on.
Quite Franklin is providing this podcast as a public service, but it is neither a legal interpretation nor legal advice, nor a statement of Quite Franklin policy. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation of that product or entity by Rich Franklin or Quite Franklin. The views expressed by guests on the podcast are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. Views and opinions expressed by Quite Franklin employees or representatives are the views and opinions of the persons expressing them, and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of Quite Franklin or any of its officials or principals. Nothing heard on this podcast at any time is medical advice or is intended as medical advice. The listener must always consult his or her personal physician or other qualified medical professional regarding any questions of a medical nature. If you have any questions about this disclaimer, please contact our general counsel.